Hello, everybody, and welcome back to day 2 of the Pixelmon World Championships 2024. I'll be your commentator, Delta, as always. Alba won't quite be here today. I'm afraid he's a little under the weather. But we're going to jump into the matches very briefly soon. Up next is the reigning champion from 2023, Obscuros, facing against someone we haven't quite seen before just yet, being Hex MC. How do you feel right now, Link? Yes, things are getting started.
I'm excited. See if Obscuros can clutch up again.
Naturally, of course. Now, I don't believe Tal is currently here with us. She is the manager for Obscuros, of course. But we'll have to see whenever she comes on how things are going to be, how confident the whole team feels. Naturally, we'll have to see for ourselves how things get going now.
When is Linky
And I need
battling,
to
dude?
get...
I'm too overpowered, dude. I can't battle. I'll win with just
Ah,
Magikarp and Splash, man.
naturally. I've seen. I do have to say, looking back at past results, there certainly have been some interesting trends. I've seen, frankly, a lot more unique Pokemon than what I would normally see in certain tournaments. Like, I'm getting statistics from one of the fellow commentators. I'm seeing a lot of different Pokemon. I'm seeing things like Bronzong, thanks to Snorlex. I'm even seeing things such as sorry for the brain fart there. I'm even seeing Pokemon like Amoonguss and Moltres, which, although are typically decent in OU, are definitely not very common. And we actually get confirmation now. It's going to be about 5 minutes before Hex MC and Obscuros are ready.
I think we got about 5 minutes to this upcoming match.
Looks like we're getting confirmation now that Hex MC is almost ready. And I'm just getting news from Obscuros that their first trainer is ready as well. Of course, I don't currently believe there is anyone in anyone. I don't believe anyone else is currently here for any other interviews. So I do want to get a little bit more insight from you, Lanky, as the owner of this setup. Do you think anything's going to change? Any kind of as these trends have been developing, we're seeing quite a lot of different teams. I think we've seen a fair amount of balance. How do you think that these two teams are going to adjust due to that?
I don't know, man. I think I'm still gonna see a lot of Landorus. There was quite a few of those last battle. I think people fancied that a lot. Saw a couple Landorus, a couple Darkrai's. Seems like there's people got a meta in their heads. Let's see if that'll be broken this match.
We'll have to see for ourselves. Excuse me for one brief moment as I turn down the music. I want to, as a reminder, everyone, I believe we currently have about 3 minutes before the next battle before the battle begins. And I'm viewing the Twitch chat right now, and I'm getting confirmation. Um, has the stream hasn't frozen, has it?
I don't believe so. I just checked my statistics here. I don't got any drops or anything. I think everyone was just standing still.
I'm also looking at the polls overall, and things are looking very much in Obscuros' favor right now, just based on the what I'm seeing so far, at least. But of course, this is subject to change, as only a few people have gotten to this poll. If you look at the stream, we do have a poll currently ongoing on who is going to win between Obscuros and Hex MC. Feel free to place your bets down below, everyone. We get confirmation now from the battler himself. Michelangelo is ready. I want to. I do. I do want everyone in the stream to know as we are doing this, make sure you grab yourselves some food, grab yourselves some drinks. This is going to be a bit of an interesting one. And coming up at 8, we'll be seeing the next section of the tournament between two other teams. I want to get confirmation for who those are really quickly. I believe I have confirmation here. It's going to be Poke Saga versus Hollowed Fantasy. Feel free to tune in at 8 for that next set of battles.
8 p.m. EST. I know we've got watchers all over the world here, so I just want to make sure we get that time zone in there for everybody.
Of course, of course. And of course, we have less than a minute until the battles start. Actually, I believe actually, at least for my computer, it might be 5 p.m. on the dot here. So it looks like things are about to start. Hold on to your seats, everyone, as we watch the first battle between Michelangelo and I believe Belak.
PixelmonFR for sure. Picklemon in the chat.
Alrighty, I do believe it is going to start.
It's black. According to I'm on my dashboard, my stream manager. It's working for me. Yeah, I'd say if you're having a black screen or any audio issues, anything like that, I'd suggest either clearing your cache or just refreshing your page. I've got no drops frames. We're running smooth over here.
I can also confirm as I'm currently on the stream right now, making sure everything is getting properly set up. Things look currently all right on my end.
I think we're just waiting for the team previews to be sent to the teams, and we'll be good to go.
I certainly believe that's the case. Of course, unfortunately, I don't believe either of them are in the VC right now. Of course, naturally, we will probably have to get an interview with them later in a moment. And it looks like the battle is about to start here, folks. I got confirmation, at least from my end, that team previews are starting to work.
Sweet.
And here we go. We got confirmation. It looks like the battles are starting to begin now. We have Michelangelo's Landers Therian against Cartana here. Oh, unfortunate.
Should be sent over.
Looks like we might have some immediate technical difficulties here. We'll have to see for ourselves whether or not that's the case. Now, this is an interesting dilemma here. I don't. Now, this is going to be interesting. As how things are set up here. I want to get confirmation. I think things might be going smoothly, but this is going to be interesting as while Michelangelo. Oh, there we go. That's actually first turn of the match has gone through. Landers is using a U-turn into the oncoming Scizor. And we'll have to see for ourselves how Michelangelo will be able to handle something like this, as we are not entirely certain what he has. Now this is going to be interesting as while Scizor is a great Pokemon, it does have a very notable fire weakness here, and we'll have to see if Michelangelo is able to capitalize on that. There we go. He roots. Ooh, this is interesting. He chooses instead to go to Loma Mola, potentially maybe trying to go for a Scald Burn here, which although is a bit risky with only a 30% chance, it very much has the opportunity to cripple a major player on Bellic's team here. Although keep in mind, if that burn does not go off, a sword stance from Scizor will be a major advantage. Ooh, it looks like we might need to stop the battle. Scizor immediately going for knockoffs to remove heavy duty boots. And it looks like we're immediately using Flip Turn to move over to a different Pokemon. And it looks like we had a slight visual bug on our end, but thankfully I don't think it's anything that'll impact the match. As we're waiting for potentially Michelangelo to determine, out comes the Alomomola, Mola, in comes the Ferrothorn, a fairly passive Pokemon, very much allowing Scizor to potentially set up here. Although the question remains whether or not Scizor will even be able to set up, or if there is something up Michelangelo's sleeve here that could help. Out comes the Scizor, and in comes the Kartana, immediately negating Leech Seed here, which is very much important for this situation. Of course, the question remains, what set does this Kartana have? I imagine if it's trying to swap into this, it's either going to try and fail Leech Seed. Out comes the Ferrothorn, in comes the Landorus. Kartana going for knockoff and removing Choice Scarf. That'll certainly be important as that is a very key item removed from Landorus here. Although its attack is lowered a little bit thanks to the Intimidate. Although, granted, we don't know how much that'll last here. And it looks like currently at the moment now this is the interesting dilemma at hand, as although knockoff will be dealing much damage, I don't think Landorus is safe at this point to pivot unless they take major damage from Leaf Blade. Ooh, there we go. Kartana is landing a Sacred Sword here, finally getting some more input on potentially what it has. We know that it's confirmed it's not choice locked, and that is very important information to keep in mind, as that means any Pokemon faster likely has a high chance to remove it. And it looks like with the U-turn, it is chucking it down a little more. We might potentially have a bug on our hands here, people. Or not. Chance it could be that it was just convenient timing. We'll have to see for ourselves what Michelangelo swaps into. There we go. We have Iron Valiant here. I do believe with this confirmation, Iron Valiant is faster than Kartana, meaning this Kartana is not safe. We'll have to see for ourselves what Bellic chooses to pivot into, or even if they know this kind of situation will be at hand. Things look very much in favor of Michelangelo here, at least in terms of pressure. Although keep in mind with several items knocked off, that could be a little dangerous down in the line. And there we go. We confirmation. Iron Valiant has failed the trick, meaning it can no longer. Meaning chances are, it probably won't be able to do anything else at this point. Out comes the Ferrothorn, doing a little bit of damage to Scizor thanks to Iron Barbs, and that is very key recovery being removed here. A lot of the items are not staying on, which could be very dangerous. In comes the Roost here, able to as Ferrothorn is able to set up spikes. Now the question is, does Bellic attempt to read the oncoming Leech Seed, or is Michelangelo even planning Leech Seed at all? That is the dilemma here, folks. As we have to determine what these are going to do. Scizor going for Defog as Leech Seed has been planted. And it looks like the recovery is coming back to Ferrothorn, even just a little bit. In comes Kartana as spikes are being laid. We get confirmation now that a Kartana is probably going to attempt to either Sacred Sword or knock off yet again, or it might be running Leaf Blade. We don't know for certain, as we've not seen Choice or Life Orb. What could this Kartana potentially be using? There we go. As it swaps to Landorus, Sacred Sword not dealing much damage here. However, keep in mind, things could go any way, as we got know for sure that this Kartana is not stuck in Sacred Sword. The important question here is Kartana going for Leaf Blade and removing the Landorus. It's getting its attack back up to normal. Things are not quite looking in as much of a favor here. Although, of course, with Iron Valiant here, we'll have to see for ourselves how it turns out. And this is a dilemma at hands, folks. We've seen this situation before, but the question is, will it play out like last time? There we go. We get confirmation. Kartana has been removed thanks to Aura Spear, and in comes Scizor, here to threaten damage with Bullet Punch. In comes the Ferrothorn, dealing a little bit of extra damage to Scizor here. And I do believe this Ferrothorn is free to start Leech Seeding unless the proper item, unless there's another Grass type on the team, which I do find a bit unlikely. We'll have to see for ourselves as Leech Seed has been planted. As I do believe Scizor is going for a Roost here. This should help mitigate a little bit of the damage dealt, at least in part due to spikes and Leech Seed with the power of Roost here. However, Roost's power points have been somewhat weakened, so we'll have to see for ourselves whether or not that actually sticks. There we go. Withdrawing Scizor and bringing in a Alomomola. Things are not looking good for Michelangelo right now, as this Tapu Koko has a shot to deal major damage. And a great read potentially, as Tapu Koko tries to go for a Hidden Power, potentially Hidden Power Fire to cancel out, to take out Ferrothorn. I do believe at the current moment it is 5-5. And Tapu Koko going for the Volt Switch here, dealing, frankly, respectable amounts of damage as well. In comes the Landorus as Chilly Reception has been brought back out. Things are looking to be very interesting right now, as we're not exactly certain what Michelangelo has against this team. And it looks like he's swapping over to Ferrothorn here. Could potentially... Now, this is interesting, as while Ferrothorn is a decent pivot into something like Landorus, there is a decent amount of damage threatened with something like Earthquake here. Question is, will this hold water? Landorus going for Stealth Rock here, as Ferrothorn goes and lands the knockoff to remove leftovers. Any kind of damage against this Landorus now is potentially permanent. Ooh, there we go. Scizor once again coming back out here to deal a little bit taking a little bit more damage to spikes here, as well as Leech Seed Chunk. A very good read on part of Michelangelo here. In comes this Scizor to immediately heal. Of course, naturally, with this damage, Ferrothorn being able to lay more spikes, the Roost pressure is on. As I believe Scizor has been using Roost quite a few times. I don't know how much power points it has left, and when that runs out, Scizor's time is limited. There we go. Scizor, ooh, that's actually huge. Knockoff removing heavy duty boots. The question is, does this Tapu Koko run ooh, we're actually getting a question from the referee to pause the battle. Has something potentially happened here? There we go. The snow has stopped. Has something potentially happened? This might this might be a bug that has happened here. I think potentially a key Pokemon had ooh, no, this is an interesting dilemma. Um we'll have to see for ourselves whether or not Alomomola um has the proper, if Alomomola is in fact a factor here, or if it has been removed. Belloc is agreeing to the terms as Volt Switch is coming out. In comes the Scizor once again as Scizor lands spikes. All right, there we go. We got confirm. It looks like the Alomomola has disappeared from the battle. We'll have to start the battle potentially from somewhere else. This might be a little unfortunate here. There we go. We got confirmation now. It looks like we're actually doing a full restart here. This could potentially change things going into this. Now this is going to be interesting, folks. How will things operate from here?
It just sucks. It has to be this one bug that just ruins everything. One bug. And the thing that it's not even a battle mechanic, it's just a client visual bug too.
I see. Both trainers are ready to potentially go in for round two. Now that they potentially have an idea of how each other plays, perhaps they might make different decisions here that could determine how well this battle goes for either trainer. We saw last time that potentially Michelangelo had a lot of pressure put on Belak. Will Belak be able to meet that pressure, or will it crumble? We'll have to see for ourselves as the battle begins to play out. There we go. The battle has begun, and it looks like Iron Valiant will be the lead here for Michelangelo against Landers Therian, which is certainly interesting as we wait for the new leads to make their play. Now, of course, we saw from earlier that this Iron Valiant is potentially a special attacking set. And so the question remains, what happens here? Scizor going for potentially to bait out the trick, but Moonblast has been hit. And we get confirmation here. Moonblast dealing, frankly, respectable damage. And we watch as the Ferrothorn pivots in. Of course, in comes the knockoff to remove leftovers once again. However, this Scizor is a little over half. Will Bellic roost here, or will it potentially swap to something else to show up? Scissor going for the roost here, potentially to set up later. Ferrothorn laying down spikes to put up pressure from either defog or other kind of hazard removal. More importantly, does this Scizor have any form of setup at all with Swords Dance? Out comes the Ferrothorn, in comes the Iron Valiant. Now, this is actually an interesting turn here, as once again, Scizor is put at the advantage here thanks to Iron Valiant. Now, the question is, what kind of play does... Ooh, there we go. Bullet Punch, harming a Scizor just a little bit more now. However, Defog has removed the spikes, so there's no longer much spike pressure. And Ferrothorn will probably need to Leech Seed at some point in order to recover its health. However, the question is, will Belloc switch? And more importantly, what play will Michelangelo make in an attempt to bait it? Here we go. In comes the Kartana as Ferrothorn lays down the spikes. Out comes the Landorus to deal a little less damage as Kartana knocks off Choice Scarf once again. Could this turn out in a similar manner as to before? Landorus coming out once again as the U-turn is allowed to pivot out. This time, what is he choosing to pivot to? That is the question here, folks. Of course, both these trainers are taking their time here, not just to make the proper decision, but as well to try and mitigate any kind of bugs that might happen. This is potentially the risk you take with events like this, where they're not quite as official as something like VGC. In comes the Aloma Mola here. Now, this is interesting because on the one hand, Alomomola does threaten quite a bit with burn. Now, of course, naturally, we do have the Tapu Koko in the back to consider, but that's all that is certain. What does Bellic choose to do here? Because keep in mind, Kartana is a good option, and so is Tapu Koko. Bring in Toxapex instead, which is very much a decent choice here, a solid pick. However, keep in mind we do have um however, this is a very passive Pokemon in the form of Toxapex, and there keep in mind we do have um a potential burn or toxic sponge in the form of Ferrothorn. In comes the Galarian Slowking as well. Now this is going to be interesting, as I do believe Slowking will probably be able to set up Future Sight, assuming the Slowking runs it at least. What is going to happen with this next turn? Because that could determine things down the line. We know for certain that Bellix Toxapex is in a bit of a disadvantage. Toxapex going for Skull, potentially trying to fish for burn, and it does get the burn. Slowking, of course, going for Future Sight here. Toxapex is regaining a little bit of health this time, but naturally, Slowking, choosing to bring in Scizor as Slowking goes for Chilly Reception here, allowing it to pretty much put a little extra pressure onto whatever is attempting to swap in here. Now, naturally, while something like Scizor would be a good sponge for Future Sight, given the fact that Scizor does in fact resist Future Sight here. The question is, with all of the damage piling up, how are things going to be set up from here? Will it result to a PP stall? Because that could very well happen. In comes Ferrothorn, a little bit damaged here, in part thanks to um, frankly, any kind of Leech Seed. And so this is interesting because right now, there's two options that can happen. Scizor going for Defog, which is a decent choice, as Ferrothorn plants the Leech Seed, finally be able to recover a little bit of health. Future Sight not dealing too much to Scizor here, but once again, potentially putting it in range where it might want to start roosting. Of course, naturally, there are other situations that could help out as well. Scizor going for the roost again as Ferrothorn goes for spikes to lay out against this Scizor here. And the Ferrothorn is once again nearly back to full. And and so potentially the battle begins. As I don't believe either of these trainers have a single Pokemon that are down just yet. We'll have to see how things go because this is a very close match. Out comes Ferrothorn. In comes the Landorus to reduce the damage just a tiny bit more, as well as recover some HP from Scizor here, potentially mitigating that knockoff damage. However, keep in mind, Bullet Punch is still a factor, and although it is weakened, in comes the Landorus of their own, as Landorus goes for U-turn here to once again potentially pivot into something else. I There we go. The snow has stopped, and Landorus's leftovers are still active. And so begins the dilemma at hand here, folks, as there are several options that can be done here, potentially that could make a huge play. As while something like Flip Turn could be helpful, keep in mind Alomomola is very splashable due to its bulk. So we don't know what Alomomola could be cooking here. Um, Bellic will have to make his play very carefully. Landorus goes for U-turn here as Scizor is hurt by spikes. Alomomola going for Wish instead, which is certainly a decent choice here. Now the question is, what does Ooh, Scizor going for the defog, which is a good choice. As Aloma Mola goes to flip turn, potentially trying to heal something else. The wish has come true. Landers is now back at full HP, but keep in mind, what kind of play will Bellic make now? Because while U-turn is certainly an option, um, we don't know if this Landers is actually going to go for it. He could potentially just run Earthquake in an attempt to take out the Scizor here and now. Landers going for U-turn once again, as it looks like Scizor is choosing to stay in. Now this is going to be interesting. What I do believe, what is Scizor potentially going for here? Scizor going for Roost to heal, also a decent choice. I do believe that is a fair amount of Roost's power points being in play now, at least having been removed. Out comes the Kartana as spikes are being laid. Spikes once again putting a little more pressure up. However, this Ferrothorn is now threatened by Kartana here. Now the question is, does he want to make the play? In comes the Landers. In comes the Leaf Blade. A very good read on Bellic's part here. However, I do not quite think that another Leaf Blade will KO, at least just yet. Of course, keep in mind we do have a Wish passing Aloma Mola up front. So this is going to be a difficult setup. In comes the Kartana, and in comes the Landorus once again, potentially choosing to swap back. This is probably going to be a war of attrition. So you should better keep your eyes peeled, everyone. We'll have to see for ourselves whether one of these trainers will attempt to go for something big. And it looks like they're swapping out to a Loma Mola once again. The question remains, is this Aloma Mola going to potentially go for a Scald Burn at some point, or will it simply attempt to flip turn or Wish Pass? And there we go. We get the switch over to the Toxapex here. Now, this is a tough decision to make here, as I don't think any of the Pokemon will appreciate a toxic or a burn. Uh, Now, this is going to be a tough decision for Michelangelo to make. Swapping into Galarian Slowking to bait the burn, although it does although the recovery is, who knows how much that a wish will help, and that is definitely going to be key, as with Toxapex on the field there's going to be some major pressure being applied here. Out comes the Scizor once again, as Slowking rather goes for Future Sight. There we go, swapping into Ferrothorn once again, and I do believe on the next turn, Future Turn may strike. Of course, the question that comes after is what kind of this Ferrothorn is actually providing a lot of pressure here. There we go, swapping into Cortana. How much damage is Future Sight potentially going to do here? It takes over half. That is actually some very major progress made, and unless we can get confirmation, That damage is permanent, as I don't believe I see any signs of leftovers or wish here. I don't think it can take any other future sight. And once that happens, Cortana is down, and that is a very major problem. Keep in mind, everyone, while this game is in fact slow right now, every turn counts. Any mistake made here is going to be nigh permanent, even if it's something as small as a wasted power points. Keep in mind, the longest game on Smogon, in fact, lasted over 1,000 turns before it was ended. Sacred Sword coming in with a little bit of Iron Dark's help, that's certainly helpful, as what is Fairthorn going for here? Fairthorn, of course, going for Leech Seed, but not quite getting it. This is actually not quite as helpful, in at least in this instance. That Leech Seed was very bad potentially for Michelangelo here. Cortana once again going for Sacred Sword. This next one will KO. Knockoff finally gets rid of the Cortana here. However, this Ferrothorn is on very low HP. It needs to find a way to safely get in soon. Otherwise, one of the key defensive Pokemon on Michelangelo's team might as well be down and out. Um, this could potentially be very dangerous. Cortana is in, and it looks like at least Michelangelo taking that much damage was worth the risk. There we go. We get confirmation now. Tapu Koko is coming in on the field, and now I don't believe there's any other way for Ferrothorn to safely come in. Now the question remains: is this Tapu Koko HP Fire or HP Ice? Swapping out the Ferrothorn, and in comes the Landorus. We confirmation now. This Tapu Koko is HP Ice. And that is the Landorus down, as well as any good switch in to electric attacks. Although it might have been the time for that kind of sack to be made. We'll have to see how things turn out now between this very tense battle. It looks like now this is going to be interesting. In comes the Tyranitar here. Now this is interesting as depending on what this Tapu Koko is, I don't think it can deal much damage to Tyranitar here. Although I don't believe it is choiced. The score is currently 5-5, everyone. And this is actually interesting as with the Sandstorm active, Tyranitar does get a boost. Ooh, there we go. Tyranitar going for the Mega Evolution here. As Volt Switch is coming out. What is Tapu Koko potentially switching into here? I do believe. Ooh, there we go. We get confirmation. Toxapex is being hurt by spikes. As the Sandstorm is potentially negating recovery with Black Sludge here. At least for a short while, any damage on this Toxapex might be permanent, at least until it heals or recovers. But passive recovery is now off. Keep in mind also with Stealth Rock up, things are considerably less safe entering and exiting. Out comes the Tyranitar, and in comes the Slow King to eat up any kind of to frankly eat up quite a bit. And it looks like Slow King here is potentially going to set up another future site. Unless I am wrong. In comes the Scizor, taking a little bit of damage, and Flamethrower, an excellent read on Michelangelo's part here, as that is another Pokemon down on Hex MC's side. It is currently the score is currently 4-5 in Michelangelo's favor. Things are looking to be very interesting at this point. In comes the Landorus Therian here. Now this is going to be tough, as although now this is going to be an interesting dilemma at hand here, as Earthquake and Knockoff are likely to deal decent damage. In comes a Lomomola taking I want to say about a quarter of its health. In part thanks to both Sandstorm and the Earthquake here. Keep in mind though, Lomomola does have Regenerator, and depending on the correct setup here, it could be everything that is necessary. Um, there we go. Once again, going for Earthquake as Aloma Mola goes for a flip turn here, potentially to recover a little bit of extra health back. The question here is, what does Michelangelo swap into that can feasibly take down this Landorus? There we go. We had the Iron Valiant. Any kind of Sandstorm damage is no longer going to be chipping. And we get confirmation now. Landorus is in fact leftovers. Now this is where things get interesting, as any kind of trick can be any kind of Pokemon Iron Valiant can be tricking into. But the question is that what Michelangelo wants to go for now, or do they want to attempt to clean out this Landorus? In comes the Toxapex as Moonblast is landing. Fortunately, I don't believe the trick has gone off though, of course. That if that is the case, this Toxapex is very much in danger. Toxapex going for the recover here to mitigate damage. However, I do believe in comes Future Sight here, which is going to be potentially a good amount of damage to any of the Pokemon on Hex MC's team. Despite its mainly being bulky, it's going to be keep in mind, Future Sight is going off a 110 attack Pokemon. Um, it is especially offensive just as much as it is defensive. There we go. Chilly Reception coming out, in fact, as something else comes in. In comes the Aloma Mola, though, as Leftovers Recovery is being set up here. Now, this is going to be interesting. What does Aloma Mola do here? Landorus finally setting up Stealth Rock here as Aloma Mola goes for Wish. Um, I could be wrong here, but could Aloma Mola potentially be trying to wish pass to the Ferrothorn here? Or it could potentially be going to something else. In comes Iron Valiant, taking damage from Spikes and Stealth Rock and Flip Turn as well. And now this is going to be tough, as Iron Valiant does threaten a good amount of Michelangelo's team thanks to the combination of fighting and Fairy Stab. We'll have to see for ourselves what happens here. And it looks like they're swapping into Galarian Slowking. Very much a wise choice on in part of Michelangelo here. However, in comes the Iron Valiant, in comes the Toxapex, and Sludge Bomb comes out once again, dealing chip damage to this Toxapex here. And of course, this does mean potentially that unless something happens, this is a free future sight into a good amount of the team here. as I do believe each of ooh, there we go. Toxapex landing a Scald potentially. As Slowking goes for Future Sight, the snow has stopped, but I don't believe the defense buff matters in this case. Whatever is coming in next is going to be facing major damage from Future Sight, potentially even a knockout depending on the Pokemon brought in. And Slowking is free to come out and pivot if it even chooses to do that. In comes Tapu Koko as Slowking goes for chilly reception here. A very good play on Bellic's part potentially as the read. And in comes a Tyranitar. Certainly a bold choice as I do imagine Choice Specs Tapu Koko dealing maybe even enough to KO, assuming this Tyranitar is built correctly. Tapu Koko going for the Dazzling Gleam, landing a critical hit, not quite enough to KO. In comes Knockoff to remove Heavy Duty Boots. That is major. Future Sight is out to remove the Tapu Koko. Any kind of damage, any kind of Tapu Koko now being out. That is the last, potentially the last big threat to Aloma Mola here. But the question is, what does Michelangelo switch into here? It might be the time to sack. Going for Loma Mola once again, and of course being harshly buffeted by the sandstorm here. Does Michelangelo attempt to go for um what does Michelangelo attempt to go for here? That's the question. Landorus, of course, going for Toxic, which although interesting, wish had been passed, in fact. And so the question remains at hand, everyone. With this Toxic, Alomomola can't stay in nearly as much as it wants to. What does Michelangelo choose to do in this situation? Landorus going for the U-turn here. Very much an interesting play as it swaps into Toxapex as Alomomola, in fact, goes for flip turn as well. What the question is, what is it swapping into here? There we go. Alomomola swapping into Ferrothorn. The sandstorm has subsided, and Ferrothorn is up back to almost three-quarters health here, and that is a very good pivot on Michelangelo's part. We'll have to see how Bellic responds. Toxapex going for the Scald, potentially trying to fish for the burn. Ferrothorn going for Knockoff, removing passive recovery. This is more important than one would imagine as Sandstorm will now be dealing a little more damage. Scald still not burning here as Ferrothorn has landed a Leech Seed. The question now is, what does Bellic do? As the ball is now in his court, does he attempt to go for a Scald burn or does he attempt to pivot out to save his Toxapex? Um, Ferrothorn being withdrawn. In comes a Loma Mola here, completely safe to burn thanks to the poison. Flip turn coming out once again as I do believe now it is at less than half health. It is forced to recover here. And now Slowking is essentially free to go for I do believe Slowking is now free to go for a future sight. This might be how the battle is won here, everyone. Enough future sights may be enough to weaken the entire team. In comes the Landorus here as future sight has been activated, everyone. Now this is going to be a choice. What does he go for? He goes for Earthquake here. Now this is Now this is interesting. Landorus, despite being fairly bulky, isn't the bulkiest Pokemon in the world. We'll have to see how much damage Future Sight does, as well as potentially an oncoming Flip Turn, or even if it is going for Flip Turn, rather. In comes Earthquake to deal a little more damage. As Flip Turn comes out, that might be enough for Future Sight to KO the Landorus. And it looks like Iron Valiant is coming back out. Future Sight is not quite enough to KO, but we do know that this Iron Valiant is in fact fast enough. Now this is interesting. I do believe potentially Bellic may be forced to sack the Landers here if they want to do that. And I do believe if that is the case, the only Pokemon remaining are potentially Galarian Slowking and or not Galarian Slowking. Sorry, I do believe the only Pokemon left afterwards may not be able to handle the pure bulk on Michelangelo's team. Iron Valley going for a very bold play here as Earthquake has dealt major damage. Unfortunately, of course, unfortunately, this does allow Landorus to recover. Valiant going for a very bold Thunderbolt, but I don't quite think it's enough. In comes a Tyranitar as the sack. In comes potentially Iron Valiant once again. No, it's actually Aloma Mola. Certainly a wise choice here on behalf of Michelangelo if they're doing it correctly. In comes the Earthquake, and in comes the Flip Turn as a good pivot out. Unfortunately, I do believe Iron Valiant is very much at a lower health than it wants to be at this point. And keep in mind, Iron Valiant in the back does still exist, so don't count Bellic out just yet. Currently in favor, Obscuros is looking to be the favorable position to win. In comes Iron Valiant though, and does this Iron Valiant have anything at all that'll be able to counter this Slowking? I do believe, judging by the Stealth Rock damage, that any kind of damage on this Iron Valiant is permanent. There is no safe play that can go. He's going for Psyshock, actually. Very much a wise choice, as Sludge Bomb immediately removes the Iron Valiant from play. I do believe this is the final Pokemon on Bellic's team here. And depending on what happens, I don't think it has a safe opportunity. In comes Scald, as Future Sight is coming out to play. We don't know how much damage this Future Sight's going to do. Judging by this reaction, it might be game, set, and match. Slowking going for Chilling Reception to be able to recover any kind of health back. And it comes Iron Valiant here. Now the question is, what is going to do? It's going to go for Thunderbolt, actually. Scald might go down, but here comes the Future Sight, everyone. And there we go. Michelangelo has been able to defeat Bellic with 4 Pokemon remaining. After a very long and very difficult match, Michelangelo will be representing Obscuros. I'm not certain if currently they are in the chat with us. We'll have to get confirmation here. Interesting little bug there, but either way, it is still it is either 4 or 3-0. We're getting confirmation it was in fact 3-0. I want to make sure this is still fair, of course. We're getting confirmation now. It was in fact a 3 Pokemon takedown. How are you feeling, Lanky, after that exciting first match of the at least of the night?
Be honest, I'm just glad the second run went smoothly. No issues occurred. That's all I'm happy for.
It appears your strategy earlier of just waiting appeared to be actually appears to work. Of course, we will be probably moving on to the next battle shortly after, which I do believe is Schrader versus Inamiku. Now this is going to be interesting as this is going to be an interesting match after that last attempt. Actually, I might be wrong. I don't think it is Schrader. In fact, it might be I do believe it's someone else rather. As we wait for these teams to get prepared, um, I would like to thank everyone in the stream for currently being here with us as we watch as the reigning champion goes against their first battle of the season. It looks like we're getting a confirmation of the setup now. I believe it's Inumiku who will be fighting Blizzard. I believe both the trainers are setting up the team preview as we speak. Each of them making their decisions to determine how they want to go forward. And so the question remains, how are these trainers going to set this up? Let's see. So the question remains, everyone, how is this battle going to turn out? We've seen somewhat promising results from both of these teams so far. As last time on day one, a lot of these battles were potentially one-sided rather. So, do you think with this closer match, they might be at a bit of a disadvantage going forward? We'll have to see for ourselves as the tournament continues. It looks like we're getting confirmation now. Both Inumiku and Blizzard are ready for the next battle to begin. It looks like team previews will be coming out soon. And so they determine who will be their lead Pokemon in this round. All right. We'll have to see for ourselves how these teams turn out going forward. And so we wait for with bated breath to see how this goes. And so the dilemma comes at hand, everyone. with bated breath and many invisible people. I will say this may be a very tense match given the current standings. There we go. We get confirmation that the battle has in fact started. We're starting out with a very interesting setup with Curum against Palafin. Keep in mind, everyone, we do have a somewhat different rule set from Smogon. So while in most circumstances Palafin is in fact banned, at least in this format, it is not. And things are very interesting, at least here, as while Curum does threaten with a freeze dry, is this even the correct set that it would use? As we wait for Palafin to either swap or flip turn out, if he even wants to go for that. Kira going for the freeze dry and immediately removing the Palafin. Ooh, things are looking to be at an immediate disadvantage for Inumiku here. As we wait for Melmetal to come out, judging by that reaction, I do believe this Kyurem is in fact scarfed potentially. Although in this situation, I'm not certain how much it matters. Let's see for ourselves what we'll have to see for ourselves what happens here. This is very valuable information. The fact that this Kyurem is choice, but we do have some. The question is, what is the defensive core that is backing this Kyurem? Swapping over to a Lomomola, in fact, dealing a good amount of damage to it potentially. I want to get confirmation on the damage. A little less than a quarter remaining on this Alomomola. Of course, naturally, that is not much damage at all. And so the question remains, what does this Melmetal go for? This is a tough decision for Inumiku to make here, as we're not exactly certain if this Melmetal is choice banned or something else. If it is choice banned, it's at a quite the disadvantage at the moment. But the question is, do they want to capitalize? It might potentially be choice banded here, as a Loma Mola goes for the protect, and judging by I think by the lack of leftovers, we know that passive recovery isn't quite available unless it switches out. And in this kind of situation, is this something that a Loma Mola wants? Aloma Mola going for flip turn, immediately landing a critical hit, although I'm not certain how much that matters in this instance. Now, what does now here's the question: what does Blizzard swap to? Going for Garganackle here potentially to capitalize on Salt Cure. Now, this is a tough dilemma, as if this is a rain team, a lot of damage is going to be dealt over time. This might be Garganacle's time to shine here. So begins the question, how are they going to do this? And both these trades are making very tough choices. We get confirmation now. Gudra's going for Flash Cannon, immediately trying to threaten this Garganackle here. The question is this where Gudra switches? And it looks like it does as Pelipper comes out, setting up the rain. We get confirmation now that this is in fact a rain team. This is going to be a tough choice to be made here, as although this Garganackle is threatened safely, Is the sack worth it in this case? And so begins the difficult question, everyone. Um what does Blizzard choose to do here? It looks like they're swapping, in fact, to a Lomomola here. Certainly an interesting choice to keep the Garganackle alive. It might potentially be the case where where he's trying to save it with Wish Pass. But the question is, does Alomomola really get the chance to get it off? As we have Zapdos here to immediately threaten. Probably, I doubt it will be a KO, but at the very least, some major damage with Electric Stab. Alomomola going for Protect as Zapdos goes for Thunder. This Zapdos really wants Alomomola gone. And it looks like a Lomomola swaps, and Zapdos goes for the Thunder, immediately pivoting into the Landorus here. Very unfortunate on Inumiku's side here. We'll have to see for ourselves. What does Landorus go for? This is a tough dilemma at hand here, everyone. There we go. We got confirmation going for Weather Ball and removing the Garganackle. That's certainly huge in this case, as that is a very bulky Pokemon immediately removed and taking out a decent amount of recovery options as well. I do believe Zapdos is able to threaten a good amount of the defensive core, at least with a combination with Weather Ball and Thunder. The only exception really is not Kyurem, rather Ferrothorn, if this is even being ran. We know for sure what kind of set Kyurem is running. We'll have to see if Inumiku actually remembers whether or not it's Choice Scarf. And it looks like he does, as Kyurem goes for Freeze Dry. And Melmetal is now in a position to KO. If that is something that Melmetal wants to attempt, now is the opportunity, if it even thinks it can do that, rather. And here we have a difficult choice on our hands, everyone. What does Inu Miku do in this situation? Does he attempt to read the Kyurem and potentially go for a different move, or does he just want to click double Iron Bash? That is the question that currently happens. And also, assuming they're there, let's not make this a drinking game, folks. Going for Thunder Punch here. A very solid read on part of Blizzard here. Although I do imagine that there's not a good opportunity to switch here, depending on the setup. I do think that the rain is about to end, though. And if that is the case, the things are looking to be at quite the disadvantage for Inamiku. Skeletor's going for Will-O-Wisp as Earthquake is being launched. Uh, Immediately, we're put at an advantage here. Although it looks a little bit scuffed on my end, potentially it is major damage. Skeletor's going for Will-O-Wisp again, potentially to negate the damage output. As we get confirmation here, Pelipper going for Hurricane. Not quite confusing, but it is providing a good opportunity. I don't think the rain has quite expired yet, as Pelipper goes for U-turn here, potentially pivoting something else. In comes the Zapdos to threaten it. Now the question is, does rain end now? Not quite. There's still another turn left. In comes the Kyurem, as Zapdos goes for Thunder, not quite enough to paralyze, and this Kyurem is once again at full HP. Now the question, this is going to be the interesting part. Does Kiram attempt to go for the read here and land an Earth Power? In comes the Melmetal once again. Kiram once again going for Freeze Dry. And that damage on Melmetal is still going down. I do believe, at least in this instance, the Skeledirge is still fairly low on HP. Question remains, what does Melmetal want to go for here? Keep in mind, with Palafin down, a major damaging Pokemon is low. And comes Dull Iron Bash for a little bit of extra damage. But the question remains, everyone, what does Alomomola choose to use here? As I do believe Alomomola is, in fact, faster. Alomomola going for Flip Turn here in a potential attempt to read, but do they have anything that can counter this Melmetal? It looks like they're swapping over to Landorus, going for an Ice Punch, and that is major damage dealt to the Landorus here. That was an excellent play on Inumiku's part. However, I do believe this Melmetal now is in fact threatened out with Earthquake. If Landorus is even going for Earthquake, that is, it might possibly just be trying to U-turn here. The rain is still a factor. Keep that in mind, everybody. However, I do believe, I'm not quite certain when rain ended, so it could be ending next turn. We're not entirely certain here. Things are looking to be a little unfortunate for Blizzard's team right now, as a good amount of his team is chunked, and there's not a safe opportunity really for Alomomola to come in. In comes the Zapdos to get rid of the Earthquake, and although Weather Ball is no longer and although the rain is no longer active for Weather Ball to be dealing water damage, keep in mind, in comes the Pelipper as he goes for Earthquake again, essentially trying to read something else here. And once again, enabling Weather Ball to be threatening. In comes a Alomomola going for a Hurricane. Hurricane has successfully confused it. As Pelipper goes for U-turn here, we'll have to see for ourselves what happens. Alomomola hurting himself in confusion. Now, this is going to be tough. In comes the Landorus here. Zapdos once again going for Thunder. Now, obviously, Earthquake is negated thanks to the Flying type. Stone Edge threatening major damage. However, Hurricane has landed, and Landorus is no longer available. In comes the Kyurem once more to threaten. But the question is, does Kyurem go for the move here? In comes the Melmetal. In comes the Freeze Dry once again. Is this the only attacking option on this Kyurem? We're not entirely certain here, everyone. I think a good amount of the offensive core is being removed, although we haven't seen everything just yet. Keep in mind, this Kyurem is still on full HP, and I don't think anything is exactly safe coming in. In comes the Alomomola as Double Iron Bash once again comes back out. Of course, keep in mind, we still have the Thunder. Keep in mind, we still have Thunder. Keep in mind, we still haven't seen one of the other Pokemon, so we don't know what's going to happen in this situation. Alomomola going for Wish here as Thunder Punch comes out. This Alomomola needs to make the right choice here. Do they choose to protect and potentially waste more power points and also allowing for a good switch? The other question is, the other question is it safe from anything else? Depending on the move here, um, things could turn out very poorly for Blizzard if Melmetal isn't handled properly. In comes the Pelipper here, and this is a tough choice to make, everyone. In comes the Skeledirge to once again heal itself back up to almost full. However, keep in mind with the rain up, not only is it going to be dealing more damage with access to things like Surf. Keep in mind, Hurricane is now 100% accurate. In comes Hex here to immediately remove the Pelipper as well as remove a very key aspect of Inumiku's strategy. We're not certain if the crit exactly mattered there. Now, this is going to be interesting. With the Landorus gone, what does Inumiku go for here? I do believe right now the ball is in Blizzard's court, and they are having a difficult choice to make here. There we go. It looks like Skeletor's is choosing to stay in, and Swampert going for Waterfall, not quite enough to KO. Skeletor's actually going for Torch Song here, trying to set up. Now the question remains, despite its bulk, what is going to happen now? Skeletor, or actually Swampert going for Flip Turn instead. What does Inamiku choose to pivot to? In comes the Melmetal once again, but the question remains, what does Melmetal do in this situation? As while Skeledirge is gone, keep in mind there's still plenty of other options. We still haven't seen all of Kyurem's moveset. We've only seen Freeze Dry, in fact. There we go. In comes the Kyurem. Now the question here, now this is interesting. As while Earth Power does have a solid chance to KO, they could attempt to read and go for a Freeze Dry. What does Inumiku choose to do here? And more importantly, do they have anything that can survive that combination? We wait with bated breath to see what happens. In comes Swampert. Trump going for Earth Power. Um, very a very solid play on on Inumiku's part, as I don't believe it'll be too much longer before Swampert can't really do much, as the rain is about to end. In comes the Alola Momola, as Swampert is setting up Stealth Rock of all things. I do believe with this, I doubt Alola Momola will be able to I'm not certain how much Alola Momola will be able to take, but it would probably be enough to handle at least one earthquake. And so right now the ball is in fact in Blizzard's court. What do they want to go for here? And so we wait with bated breath, everyone. Swampert going for Earthquake, not quite enough to KO as Alomomola goes for Flip Turn instead, potentially allowing a good position into Rillaboom. Now, this is a tough choice with a combination of Grass and Freeze Dry. There is not really much that can be safely brought in. Out comes the Swampert. In comes the Goodra actually as Alomomola is brought in. This might be key, folks, as Goodra is notoriously bulky on the special side, and we do know for certain that there is a choice lock on the Curum here. What does this Goodra go for? Alomomola once again going for Flip Turn here. As it recovers back up to almost full. Goodra going for Thunder here. Certainly a bold choice. As a little more recovery is being restored. Naturally, this Rillaboom is very threatening. The question remains, what does Inumiku do now? In comes the Swampert potentially as a stack and allowing Rillaboom to recover a good amount of its health back. Things are not quite going in Inumiku's favor anymore. This is a tough one, folks. We'll have to see what happens. Out comes the Zapdos, but keep in mind, this is grassy terrain and Rillaboom, so we don't really know what this Rillaboom is going to do in this situation. Grassy Glide might just straight up be enough to KO. In comes the Curum as Zapdos goes for Hurricane and landing a Confusion. This is major, everybody. As with the Confusion in place, we're not exactly certain how it's going to happen. And because the Melmetal, Freeze Dry not dealing nearly enough damage here, and of course we do still have the Alomomola in the back, we're not certain what is going to be played here. Oh, this is interesting. It appears Alomomola has disappeared. Now this is a tough choice to make. While there was an immediate advantage presented to Blizzard, it appears his Alomomola is no longer present, as it appears to have been disappeared due to the glitch. Curum hurts itself in confusion, and it looks like at long last the Melmetal is defeated here. Or the not the Melmetal, sorry, the Curum. And so the decision. There we go. Rillaboom. There we go. Rillaboom taking a little more damage to Stealth Rock. The question is, how much damage would Drain Punch do to this Melmetal? Would it be enough to KO? Drain Punch is enough to KO. And this Rillaboom is at nearly full HP once more. This is the question, everyone. Does Zapdos land a Hurricane? Zapdos lands the Hurricane, and Drain Punch is enough to KO it once again. Unfortunate. And here comes the Goodra. How much damage is Drain Punch going to do here? I don't think the recovery quite matters, given the fact that Rillaboom's at full health. And so the question remains, everyone. Does this Goodra survive, and does this Goodra kill? Because if Goodra kills, I think this is potentially the last bastion Emiko has to reducing to frankly reducing how much damage is going to be done here. There we go. We get confirmation. Drain Punch is enough to KO, and it looks like Blizzard will be beating Inimiku with a score of 2 Pokemon left. After a very tough match, it looks like Hex MC will be tying the score up just a little more. If we're looking at Turtle Pokemon Fainted right now, the score is in fact, if I want to get my math right at least, is currently 1 Pokemon in the lead in terms of knockouts for Obscuros, but that could very well change in this final battle between Seabass and the last person on Hex MC's team. I do believe the final Pokemon coming here will be low key versus I believe the final other Pokemon trainer here available is in fact Seabass. Wherever they are. I don't believe any of the trainers are currently here with us, although I do want a brief interview with Leafeon if they want to. Feel free to come up for just a little bit. Oh, there we go. We have Seabass back down. Now this is going to be interesting as with the current score set up, things are looking to be a very close match between these two teams. This is how we know. Now this is. It looks like the battlers are ready to do this. And so the battle is about to start. The final battle between Obscuros and Hex MC, and potentially to determine who will be moving on to the next round. And it looks like the battles are about to start. Be careful, everyone, as we don't know how this final battle will end up between Obscurus and Hex MC. This is going to be tough. And it looks like the battle has begun. It looks like we're starting off as at a very interesting starting point here. Oh my. It looks like we have a minor technical difficulty here as it appears Seabass does not have a Mega Band. It looks like for the time being, we're just gonna wait a bit as everyone gets fully prepared once more. After that after that minor hiccup here, we'll have to see for ourselves how things change. It looks like the battle's actually potentially about to start again. We get a little more insight with their team. Now this is interesting. We get confirmation that Ferrothorn is in fact on this team, but the question is it balanced or is it potentially a different kind of set? We're not entirely sure. Oh, actually, it looks like the battles have actually started. Apologies for that. And it looks like this is potentially turn one. The question now here is what does Loki choose to do in this situation as we wait for their responses to come in? There we go. In comes the Dragonite here. Weather Ball dealing over half health despite the multi-scale and the resist. This is the pure wall-breaking power of Charizard, everyone. Able to deal massive damage to even something as bulky as Dragonite in this case. Now the question is, what happens here? What does Loki choose to bring in? More importantly, what will happen to this Dragonite? In comes the Pelipper once again. Weather Ball doing a little under half here. Now this is an interesting series of events here, as depending on what happens, Charizard might be able to get a very good read here, depending on what this Pelipper chooses to do. The ball is currently in Mr. Rain Team here's court, um, as if low key decides to U-turn here to pivot into something else, probably Swampert, knowing how most rain teams go, um, it's possible that there could be a jump. In comes Galarian Slowking, a very safe choice here, pivoting into the Galarian Slowking here. And Slowking recovering a little bit of health back thanks to Black Sludge. Um, Now this is the dilemma at hand, everyone. What does this Slowking go for? And more importantly, does what does this Pelipper do in this situation, as it technically has the advantage right now, being free to U-turn into pretty much anything here. There we go. We get confirmation now. He is withdrawing Pelipper into Delmise as Slowking goes for the chilly reception, and Charizard comes back out to play. And so and once again, Charizard is at the advantage here. What does what is going to happen in this case? And more importantly, what does this Delmise have that could feasibly handle this? Both these trainers are thinking to make their decision as well as attempting to avoid the glitch that might ruin their run here. Keep in mind, folks, Weather Ball is fairly safe in this case. Withdrawing Delmise once again and landing the Weather Ball here. This Pelipper is on very low HP. Potentially, unless this thing is scarfed, this Charizard probably has enough firepower to remove Pelipper here. if that is the risk they potentially want to take. As long as this Pelipper remains alive, rain will always be a factor. And keep in mind, depending on the setup here, Seabass has the potential to bring this very much into the favor of a Sun team. Out comes Charizard, in comes Pelipper. This is huge, everybody, as this allows Dragonite to set up. In comes Earthquake, threatening massive damage, and in comes the Thunder Wave, immediately being negated thanks to paralysis here. And so the question remains, what does this Dragonite go for? As Slowking is no longer a safe pivot until it recovers its health back. Recovery is coming back out as Skarmory is brought into play. And we're getting comfort, and this is definitely a very solid choice into this kind of team, as with its bulk, Outrage being confused due to fatigue, and it looks like Skarmory, what is Skarmory choosing to do here? The Dragonite was locked in fact. In comes the spikes to lay around hazards, although we're not entirely certain how much that will matter in this case, as this might allow Dragonite to roost or even potentially go for a different move. Thunder actually is coming out, allowing Dragonite to finally remove the Skarmory. However, ooh, this is interesting. Is the sun going to be set up here, or is there going to be a little bit of a glitch? Now, this is interesting, everybody. There we go. We have confirmation. Weather Ball is able to take out the Dragonite here. And so we have an interesting choice on our hands. In comes Pelipper once again, although I'm not quite certain how much that matters in this case. As I do believe in most cases, I do believe Charizard is usually faster, unless there's a Scarf, which might be the case, although I don't imagine that would work. And so we are left with quite the choice at hand here, everybody. In comes the Galarian Slowking, and in comes the Tornadus. Rain has finally stopped. Um, and so we have an interesting pivot situation here. As although rain is no longer up, we have to see for ourselves how they do it. Tornadus going for taunt here, and Slowking being negated out of Thunderwave. The question remains, though, what does the Slowking do now in this case? And more importantly, do they attempt? Does one of them attempt to go for, or rather, this is actually a little. This is actually a lot more interesting than one would expect in this case, as now the ball is very much in. Things are looking very good for low key for right now. At least until that Charizard comes back in. I do believe, unless I am wrong, no, the Pelipper is in fact still alive. And so we are left with a tough choice, everybody. There we go. In comes Tapu Lele as Tornadus goes for Nasty Plot. This Tornadus is going for game. As I do believe Tornadus is faster than a good amount of the team here. Of course, this is the actual question. Will its bulk be enough? Oh my god, he's going for Supersonic Sky Strike, and it looks like we know now Tapu Lele's not quite fast enough to take out the Tornadus. Things are looking incredibly, things are not looking good at the current moment. In comes Urshifu Rapid Strike. Now, is this Choice Scarf, or is this something else? If this is if this is in fact Choice Scarf, things could turn out in Seabass's favor once again, as I'm not certain if Tornadus will be able to survive it. In comes Surging Strikes. We'll know for ourselves right now. It looks like it will be able to live. Hurricane missing the attack! Oh my goodness, things have very much turned around for things have very much turned around in case for this. In comes the Regenerator, and it looks like this was interesting. I think there might have been a slight visual bug on my end at least. And so begins the tough choice, everyone. While rain will be coming up, I don't believe it is a safe opportunity for Pelipper to come back in. Even despite the fact that spikes would technically be up. And so, bringing in Charizard once again as Delmise is hurt by spikes. This is interesting with the spikes up. What is going to be done here? Withdrawing Delmise, bring in Pelipper as Weather Ball finally takes out the Pelipper here. This is huge. Seabass has in fact won the Weather War here, and in comes the Mega Swampert. I do believe Seabass may be forced to sack something here in order to keep his Charizard alive. Out comes the Mega Swampert here as potentially Flip Turn comes out. This could be it. Now, this could be interesting, folks. What is being chosen to swap here? I believe, if I could be wrong, but I know for certain that Dragonite and Pelipper are in fact down. The currently remaining Pokemon, at least for Blizzard's side, ooh, Black Sludge, enough to take out the Galarian Slowking here, but such a pivot may have been necessary in order to bring back the Charizard. And it looks like I think Rain may have bugged out again here. And so we wait with bated breath, everyone. What does Charizard choose to do here? Of course, going for Weather Ball is not going to be nearly enough. Charizard going for Poltergeist. We also know now for certain that Charizard is pretty much faster than a good amount of the team left. And so the question remains: in comes the Urshifu, being attacked by Choice Scarf here. Um, a lot of the Pokemon remaining, at least his two main offensive cores, are in threat of being KO'd. This is a tough match right now. Going for U-turn here, potentially trying to pivot into something else. Going for Charizard and immediately removing it. However, it has removed Sun. Keep that in mind, everyone. And here comes Palmont. This is going to be interesting, folks. Could Palmont be necessary to bringing this back? Um, there we go. A Pokemon was revived. Probably the Mega Charizard. Poltergeist is coming in. Palmont using the Lepa Berry here in order to restore another Pokemon back to full health. This could be. Now, this is actually interesting, as Revival Blessing is technically allowed due to the niche use of Palmont in OU. It looks like Palmont has brought back a good amount of Pokemon once again. The item has failed due to Poltergeist's gimmick. You cannot attack the Pokemon if they don't have an item. A very unfortunate misplay on behalf of Seabass. In comes Double Shock to not quite be enough to remove, unfortunately. However, that damage means Dumbass can no longer safely come in. And I do believe this Charizard, unless things go very poorly here, is safe to sweep. In comes Weather Ball to remove the Delmise. And the sunlight has now faded. Do keep in mind, everybody, that I believe the only Pokemon, the only good damaging move on Tornadus right now is, in fact, Hurricane, which will be only 50% accurate under the sun. Is that a risk that they want to take? Tornadus is coming out. The question is, does Hurricane land and does it KO the Charizard? If it KOs the Charizard, then there is a major advantage at play here, as I don't know if Urshifu Rapid Strike can KO it. In comes to Urshifu to potentially threaten it, and of course Tornadus missing Hurricane. Very important here, as that allows Tornadus to potentially go. There we go. Surging Strikes coming out once again. Not quite enough to KO thanks to the Regenerator. In comes Charizard once again. I do believe the sun is once again proving to be a thorn in in comes Hurricane once again to remove the Charizard. The weather team has really not been working out here. Um, things are going incredibly well on now this is gonna be interesting. Slowking is still alive. Tornadus going for the taunt, and Eerie Spell is enough to remove the Tornadus. And Earthquake is enough to KO here. That is game, set, and match, folks. It- And it looks like after a um, very close match, Hex MC will be winning this encounter. We'll have to see for ourselves how things go on as we move on to the next match at 8. We'll see you all then.